You wouldn't be doing that, would you? Why?
What would the message of the last election be? In Iowa, 3 Supreme Court justices were removed for the first time in history. Was the message of the last election evangelicals to drive Republican presidential nominee?
No, I think there was a big myth that the whole issue last time was about evangelicals. I think it was about values and authenticity, and I think it was about making sure that people were reflecting consistent values that people had out there in in small towns. People forget that I was the one talking about economic issues 4 years ago, and was pilloried for it. Was told that those really weren't even issues that we should be dealing with. But if you go back in 2007, I was talking then that the economy was headed toward a downturn, and that people were struggling, and that people were working harder that year than they had been working the year before, but we're having less to show for it. Now, no question about it, I think that in places not only like Iowa, but across the country, there are still core principles and values that matter to people. Frankly, they matter to me. The sanctity of life and the sanctity of marriage, those are issues that still are important issues to many people because, as I will say here today, and I won't give the whole speech away, but the point is that those are economic issues as well as they are social issues. And the people who think of them as only sort of peripheral social issues clearly have not done much depth of research in understanding the economic impact of broken families.
I'm wondering if, as you ponder the idea of running for president in 2012,
is that what I'm doing? Pondering that? Okay.
You may consider whether you may have more impact on society by being the next president or the next Oprah.
Well, you know what? If Oprah would like to turn over her chair, I'm sure I would be willing, but I haven't had that call yet. So, honestly, I'm not on a timetable. I'm not on somebody's calendar to say this is the time when I have to decide. Am I keeping the option open? Yes. Am I open to it, considering it, and giving thought? Of course. I think I would be foolish not to, in light of having been through it, understanding what it's about. Also the fact that consistently, I'm in a very different position than I was 4 years ago when I was an asterisk in the polls, and most people didn't think that I was even going to be serious. And this time, in most of the national polls, I'm either the top or at near the top, and that certainly is a different position to be in. But it doesn't mean that I'm automatically going to do it either. There's a lot of deep internal soul searching. And another thing for me is that, as I've told many people, I don't plan to jump in a pool unless there's water in it. Been there, done that before. So,
has your position changed since about a year ago when you said it would be less than likely that you'd do it?
I think that entire answer was taken completely out of context. I was being asked at that time by Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, essentially, if you had to make the decision today. Well, I didn't have to make the decision that day. I wasn't thinking about it. I was thinking about 2010. I was thinking about the fact that I had 3 radio shows to do 5 days a week, and a television show to do, and a whole lot of other things that were going on. So that was not an indication of complete lack of interest or a denial. I think it was reported that Huckabee says he won't run, and I never said that. I've never said that. What I said was that if you had to ask me today, but that was a year ago. And so ask me in 6 months and I'll have a clearer answer.
You also said in that interview that the 2010 elections, how those turned out would help decide your answer, and
yeah.
if you thought you could lead a movement. In the meantime, have you come to any conclusion on those?
I think America's in a much better position than it was before the elections because the Tea Party movement was really a citizens' uprising. It was a great opportunity to give voice to the people who had been truly just shoved aside and told that their voices did not matter and that their opinions were not valid. And it was the most significant comeuppance to the political chattering class that probably has happened in my lifetime. It was a very positive thing. What that means for this next election cycle, we don't know yet. But I don't think there's anyone who, at least of maybe my philosophical persuasion, couldn't be overjoyed by the results of the election. And one of the things, by the way, that I think was most significant, one was the incredible impact in 19 state legislatures. This may have been more significant than what happened in Congress, because the long-term policy is going to be affected more from the state legislatures than it will be from Congress. especially with Congress divided. The other factor is that the significance and the historic nature of the judicial elections here in Iowa were far bigger than the borders of Iowa. It was a very important statement that voters in this state made that resonated across the country, and one that I think will give legs to a larger movement over the next few years.
Well, if you read back the election results again from this year, does that advance your thinking towards the mood coming out of those elections?
Not necessarily, Mike. I mean, I don't want to make it as if that I was waiting to see what was going to happen. The one thing it told me was that this was a year in which the amount of money wasn't always commensurate with the results. That's a good thing. And that message mattered. And that policy mattered. That's what I was looking for more than anything. And that was, to me, a very affirming result out of this election cycle.
If Governor Palin would compete in the caucuses, announced that she would that discourage you?
One of the things I've learned in politics is you never make your decisions based on what other people are going to do or don't do, because first of all, they can change their minds. And second of all, the one thing I learned running 4 marathons was that you run your race, your pace. You do not go out there and look around and always constantly wonder what somebody else is going to do. No question she will be a very, very strong presence and force. If she gets in, you know, she may run away with it. And that's one of those things that everybody has to be prepared for. But the decision that I make won't be based on what she does. If I get in it, I would prefer that she not and that she endorse me. But if she does, then you know, I welcome her, because I think that she's got a very strong and important voice, and has brought a lot of energy to the grassroots of the Republican Party, and that I think is very, very positive by anybody's standards.
She just said this week that she could beat President Obama, so could you?
Always believed I could. I wouldn't have run the last time if I didn't think I could. And the good news for me is that a majority of American voters seem to think that. In the last poll, I was the only one who polled above him outside the margin of error. So even if I didn't think it, it's even better that a whole lot of other people are fooled out there and they think that, so that's good. I'll take that any day of the week.
The tax Tea Party movement was a big factor in this election. Even if the liberal press denied that. What would you do to garner some of that support, considering that you took a lot of hits on economics, most of them I think unfair, but you took hits on taxes and those kind of things. Yeah. What would you do to persuade those folks that you're their guy?
Well, the key thing is tell the truth. My record is one that I'm not afraid of or ashamed of, and when people work, the fact that I balance budgets. And I think what you just said, I would certainly echo with a shout. A lot of the attacks that were thrown at me on economic issues were absurd, unfounded, and distorted. That's politics. It's part of the way the game is played. You know, if anybody goes into this process thinking that everybody's going to play nice, then one has never played the game. This is a full contact sport. You kind of go into it knowing that you're going to come out bumped up and bruised and probably bleeding a lot. But I do think that I don't have a real anxiety about the truth. The truth never has really hurt me. The distortions have.